let Tapio make his presentation. If every technical aspect is functioning.
Getting there. Hello, and nice to be here. I'm sorry I'm not delivering this in Swedish. I can say thanks to Andrew, but also, even though I once studied in Aalto Academy, my Swedish is pretty rusty these days. But maybe after hours, at some talks, you'll say Swedish. I just was reminded during the presentation of this artistic project where K Foundation burned £1 million in the 90s. They were really famous sort of DJs and also did some art projects. And there was a reaction from them getting a big art prize, so they burned all the money they got as artists. That was indeed £1 million. They got a lot of attention, but also one of the artists after this had serious mental health problems. He just couldn't live with the fact of what they actually could have done to help other people with this money. So in a way, money is perhaps not itself the evil thing, but how we operate with that or how we don't. I'll shift this on. I will finish at the end something that relates with previous presentation. We talked a little bit about what could future co-ops be about. But my presentation deals a lot with sort of questions of art and ecology and how we can understand open source ideas in relation to land and new ways of working together. Also, I would like to kind of bring this up. It's a publication just came out in 2004. It was written in 1971. French Guy Debord wrote then that pollution is in fashion today, exactly in the same way as revolution. So basically pointing out that even though there was all the knowledge at that time to work with environmental problems and it was gaining a lot of public attention, not much happened despite all the knowledge that was generated by science. So I think, in a sense, the role of arts and I think also ethical people working in research from any field is to actively work to kind of use knowledge that we have to make social and environmental change possible. So that we don't look at the things that we've written today or things that we talked about today 20 years from now and say like, yeah, we talked about that, you know, in this beginning part of the century, but we didn't end up doing anything successful. So the bridge to today's theme has to do with kind of connection between knowledge and experience, land, and use and access of these resources. Myself, I have a history of working with media arts in a long time, but in fact, when I studied at Aalto Academy, I was studying environmental engineering and computer science at the same time with arts. So I've had a long history of interest in looking at alternative energy production methods and so on. But I got so disappointed with the industry of the time when I was studying. They had all the innovation, but companies who were interested in money said that even if we kind of earned the money back in 3 years using, let's say, a smoke filtering system as side products, we won't use it. It would have to be money back in 1 year. So I figured I'll do something else. So I ended up mostly working with art and media. And currently, my main research project is on using artists and creatives using location-based technologies in public spaces. So, and my own applied work is with sort of urban rurals and marine ecologies and how we can use new technologies to communicate these ideas and also create new experiences. Today I will talk in sort of 3 different segments that somehow have something to do with one another. I'll talk a little bit about open source as an economy or of exchange and participation. Then just a little to get an idea of some artistic work that I do, briefly about this project called Marry, and then for the more sort of polemic manifesto kind of direction about the 21st century co-op. open source, and I guess this is one of the things that the formerly not so known Finland is quite known of today. Linus Torvalds, who initiated Linux in 1991, he wrote just a small email out to a network of friends saying like, hey, I made this kind of software. Do you think it's useful at all? There was no political motivation to it. It was just like, it was tinkering with software, made something like, okay, this works better, this could become useful. And a few years later, thousands of people were developing what became to be known as Linux operating system, free software that in 2008 enabled 60% of web servers to operate. And also a lot of the desktop versions are being translated to different languages around the world, and the software is free of charge. And now also big companies like Nokia and Intel, they just announced that they will invest a lot into Linux-based telephone operating system, which will be called Nuvo. I guess my point with this is that from a small idea, a whole sector can be changed radically. So the value of small ideas can be grand. What is interesting about the open source logic for the discussion of LAN, there are a number of things there. I guess some aspects of software called free software is that they cannot become part of the kind of certain economies that open source software can, because with free software it cannot be charged. Open source software can become part of services, platforms that people also sell. But the main thing here is about access to code and the kind of this kind of social and network economy, how both the users and coders work together to improve the software environment. So one could actually talk about code developing communities. And so you can modify software, but you have the responsibility to feed back into the knowledge environment. One of the bigger problems of this open source and free software environment is that sometimes programmers are better talking to one another and not to the people who should use the software. So there's still a long way to go to actually reach the sort of political, economic, social possibilities of making free software available to people in different parts of the world. But indeed, this communication between users and developers is also something very radical. It is also something that happens in developing games, so it's not unique to free and open software. But if you think about how much companies listen to consumers when they develop something new, it's not so common. Of course, there are a lot of cases. In relation to land, then, how to think about land use through exchange economy and collaborating through networks. I think this is the most interesting parallel from open source thinking, if not ideology, that can be taken on. The other thing, I guess, how many of you is not part of any social media online, like Facebook or any other form? How many of you don't at all involve? 1, 2. It's maybe 5%. So 90% would be somehow involved with social media.